Oh, hello, YouTube. We are back again with Season 1, Episode 4 of Talamasca. We're officially in the second half of the season. We're still in that building phase. We haven't got to our penultimate episode yet, which is, we all know where shit really goes down. So we're just building tension right now in Episode 4. But let's get into what happens in this episode because, hot damn, does a lot of shit go down. So the episode starts off with Olive trying to make contact with Guy, and he hasn't shown up for work that day, so she calls up Helen. She's like, hey, listen, Guy isn't at work. Is everything cool? Because they don't know that at the end of last episode, Jasper decided Guy needed to have a sleepover. So the Talamasca has no idea where Guy is. This is a problem. However, Helen doesn't have time to wonder about whatever Guy's doing right now because she's off at the cemetery visiting her parents' graves, only to find that someone else had left the same bouquet maybe a couple weeks ago. Is it her sister? The sister she's been looking for? Who knows? You know what? I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit in this episode and finish off this little plot line here because Helen desperately looking for her twin sister. And she's been going to the old facility she was at. She's looking up other people who were at this facility, and she visits this woman named Abigail. She's like, listen, do you have any clues? Like, I'm trying to find my sister. And the only clue she ends up getting from this person is a note that says Jameson equals Melville. We don't resolve that in this episode. We just know she is on the hunt for her sister, and she's going to do whatever it takes to find her. And overall, I think the biggest speculation I've seen about this season is that Helen might be Guy's aunt, and I'm not sure that's the case because the only thing we really know about Helen is that she desperately wants to find her twin sister because it's the only family she has left. Allegedly. I should say that because there's a lot of lies going around here. Let's say if that were the case and Guy is her nephew, why on earth would she send him into a situation where him getting himself killed is a likely scenario, you know? So I don't think that Helen has a familial bond with Guy. If I'm gonna wildly speculate, I think that Helen might have been friends with Guy's mom who betrayed the Talamasca. And so she's been keeping an eye on Guy ever since the mom has been in hiding. Who knows? Maybe the mom even betrayed Helen. That's why Helen doesn't really have a problem sending Guy in here. I don't know. I just don't think they're related. But speaking of Guy, let's go check in on him at the London Mother House because he just had a sleepover with Jasper and it's the next morning. They're having breakfast together. Well, I mean, Guy's having breakfast and Jasper's just watching him eat it because this is not what Jasper eats for food. They start getting down to business here and Jasper's like, all right, you want to work with me? Let's work together. And he shows him a copy of these autopsy photos that we've already seen. And he's like, listen, see that neck? Yeah, that's a vampire bite. I know a vampire stole the book. We gotta go be the one to find it. Which is just a recap of things we already know, but there's two things that we don't know from this scene. First of all, how did Jasper get these photos? The only three people we know with access to these photos are Olive, Helen, and Detective Bowlcut. Who gave these to Jasper? You know, there's a missing step here. I don't know if that's even important, but how did Jasper get these photos? I'm curious. And also, the only thing we don't know here is why Jasper wants the 752 so damn bad. And of course, Guy asks him exactly that, hey, why do you want this book? So Jasper's like, all right, I'll tell you a little story here. We'll get to the point eventually. Jasper takes Guy on a little trip down to the basement, where Jasper keeps his pets, so to speak. And he starts telling this story about a Romanian vampire named Vessel. And back in 1271, this guy Vessel, he had a weird kink about liking chicken blood. That's all he wanted to eat was chicken blood. And then some other vampire ratted it about to the coven and told everybody he's fucking weird for eating chickens. And everyone else in the coven agreed and they kicked him out. Now flash forward several centuries. We're up into the 1920s, okay? Vessel, he's still pretty upset that he got kicked out of his coven. So he's like, hey, Talamasca agent Guy, I'm gonna bribe you for some information. I want to find out who ratted me out. So Talamasca guy goes and checks the files, figures out it was this guy named Murgu. And Murgu, still alive, he actually is like leader of a coven in Bolivia. So guess what Vessel does? Yeah, he hops on a little plane and goes himself over to Bolivia, and he proceeds to slaughter Murgu's entire coven. All because a Talamasca agent took a bribe and ratted someone out. I mean, realistically, Murgu did something and, you know, this is retribution, but the only way this was able to happen is because the Talamasca meddled where they shouldn't have been meddling. And this is exactly the reason why Jasper thinks the Talamasca has far too much information and therefore way too much power over immortals, vampires in particular. But the thing is, Jasper also has power over immortals because he makes pet revenants. And speaking of which, Guy gets horrifically introduced to one, and it's that poor schmo that we saw get turned last week. And by the way, I just found out today that his name is Checkers. What? Like, I thought I was being a little bit mean calling him poor schmo, but honestly, like, Checkers is worse. What a terrible name for this guy. But regardless of silly names, the introduction has been made, and Jasper and Guy go back upstairs, and they're gonna discuss the plan moving forward. Also, Guy smacked his face into a wall trying to get away from Checkers, so he's bleeding all over the place. Like, we gotta fix that. You're hanging out with vampires. And then we kind of have like a little bit of maybe a softer moment for Jasper because he's literally doing first aid on Guy's face. Like, oh no, your wound, let me tend to it kind of a thing. And he even like gives like Guy a little drop of his blood just to like fix the cut real quick. Like, yeah, he could have stuck a band-aid on it or he could just fix it for him. And vampires don't go around giving out their blood willy-nilly, so it's kind of a big deal that he did that for him. It seems as if Guy's cinnamon roll nature also works on vampire curmudgeons just as well as it does on people. Honestly, I think Jasper just feels like Guy is this adorable little rapscallion. He just wants to tousle his hair. You know, he's amused by him. And also, I think Jasper sees like a little bit of himself in Guy. So it's kind of like a cute little friendship they have in a way, even though they don't trust each other. They're both spies, but like, it's kind of cute. I like it. It's a fun little scene. But anyway, let's get down to what the plan is. So basically, the plan here is Guy, he's going to infiltrate the Westcroft Hotel, which is actually a vampire coven. And Guy is going to go in all by his lonesome because all the vampires of the coven know who Jasper is. He can't move around freely, but no one knows who Guy is. And since the plan is basically just a recon mission, you know, Guy, he can read vampire minds. It should be, you know, fairly straightforward and safe. You know, get in, get the info, get out. It's pretty simple here. And if anything goes wrong, they have an insurance policy, which is Checkers. You know, he's vicious and like controllable. They have muscle. And then once Guy gets out with the information that Jasper needs, he'll send in like a bunch of his pet revenants to go pick up the 752 and bring it to him. Because Jasper believes the 752 is kind of like a vampire address book, and it will have information on every living vampire in the world in it. And once Jasper has this information, he can use it to destroy the Talamasca and therefore protect vampires. They can go be safe from the Talamasca because they can't find them. So that's the whole plan here. The 752 is still very mysterious because Helen thinks it's a backup of all of the information, while Jasper thinks it's just like an address book of vampires. It has information in it, but what's in this book is still kind of up for grabs. No one really knows. And Guy is a little bit hesitant about this mission. You know, first of all, he has to go in by himself, which he does not want to do. And also, knowing that the vampires will have ultimate power completely unchecked, it doesn't really sit right on his spirit here. So Jasper needs to continue his little story from earlier, get Guy back on his side. And he reveals, I think, what everyone has already figured out, that he was part of that slaughtered coven in Bolivia. Except in Jasper's own words, this coven was actually kind of real chill and progressive and non-violent because it was made of vampires that lived among other immortals and regular humans too, like in harmony. And Jasper was a human kid when all of this went down, and he just happened to not be home that night when the whole coven got slaughtered. So he comes back and realizes his whole family is dead, and he has to go off on his own and take care of himself. He winds up in Texas, hence the name Jasper, I'm assuming. And, you know, obviously a fair chunk of time passes between when he was a kid to when he was turned into a vampire. But in all of that time, he's still real sore about the Talamasca's part in all of this and how they use their knowledge to basically persecute immortals. And Jasper's whole story of woe is kind of similar to Guy's story of woe. The Talamasca ripped Jasper's family away from him, and the Talamasca, through something we don't know yet, ripped Guy's mother away from him. So they both have lost their family due to the Talamasca. Now Guy can kind of be like kindred spirits with Jasper. They're back on each other's side here. And at this point, I should say this is all alleged because, you know, this is a spy thriller. People lie a lot. Jasper's story of woe is rather convenient right now to manipulate Guy to feel sympathy for him, you know? This could be a lie. Personally, if I'm going to speculate, I do think Jasper is telling at least most of the truth, the same way Guy walked into his house and told him most of the truth. So yeah, I do think Jasper has some legitimate beef with the Talamasca here, but I don't know how much of the story is true and how much of it is being used to manipulate Guy. Who knows? I think everyone's out to manipulate this kid. But anyway, let's move on with the plan here. They take Guy to the hotel, and he goes in, he's wandering around, you know, he's at the bar, he's playing a game of Spot the Vampire, and there's so much chatter going on all the time, and Guy, he's starting to get anxiety, he's getting a headache, he goes to take one of his pills, and when he reaches into his pocket, they're not there because someone had already picked his pocket. Guess who picked his pocket? Raglan James. This is how we get introduced to the character in Talamasca. He is a pickpocket. So Raglan has finally entered the game here. He is our favorite morally gray, wise-ass Talamasca agent. And overall, Raglan does have a rather cynical view of the Talamasca. He thinks, obviously, they are full of shit and only out to, you know, for themselves, their own self-interest. And agents are plentiful and expendable to them. So Raglan's main objective in everything he does is to cover his ass first and foremost, which honestly is just good advice that guys should be taking from Raglan. He's doing him a solid here saying, hey, the Talamasca's fucked up, dude. You shouldn't listen to him. But why is Raglan at this hotel? Well, turns out he's there to make a deal with some vampires. Some deal is going down here. And it's obviously something outside of the Talamasca's purview. And Raglan's like, listen, Guy, you need to get the fuck on out of here because I'm not gonna let you mess up my plan. And if you don't get out of here, I'm gonna go tell all the vampires that you're a Talamasca agent and they're gonna bite you because they don't like Talamasca agents. And at this point, Guy doesn't really have much of a choice here, so he walks off. Guess who he runs into next? Doris. Doris has still been following him around. So she pulls him aside and she's like, Guy, what the actual fuck are you doing? This is a vampire coven. You are making it very difficult for me to keep you alive. The guy's like, no, you don't understand. And he gives her the quick rundown about why he's here. I'm looking for the 752. Whoever killed Kevis took the 752 and it's a vampire. And that's why I'm at the hotel to find the vampire who did it. And Doris is kind of the voice of reason here and also suspects just as much as I do that he's being manipulated. And she tells him as such, honey, this whole thing, you're doing exactly what they want you to do. Can you not see this? She's very confused for him. Guy, he's set in his plan and he refuses to leave with her, so he just walks away again. And he has to figure out a way to get into Raglan's deal because he thinks Raglan is there to make a play for the 752. So Guy comes up with some convincing lies and tells Raglan hey, the Talamasca knows you're here and the building is surrounded, so what you're gonna do is take me up to your meeting and you can just tell him I'm your assistant or something. or else I go tattle on you like you threatened to do to me. So Raglan's like, all right, fucking fine, let's go. So they get in the elevator, and as the elevator's closing, guess who sneaks in the elevator with them? Oh, it's Doris. She's still like, someone has to protect this fucking dummy. So she's following him around still, that sneaky little witch. So she goes up to the floor with them. She doesn't follow him into the meeting. She kind of separates after that, and she goes back downstairs and she like writes a note. She gets a porter. She's like, hey, you know that van outside? Go give that guy in the van this note. So the porter goes, and basically the note just says, hey, guy's in trouble in the room he's in. She's at least trying to save him, even if he won't let her do it. Someone's got to. And you know what? It's a really good thing she warned them, because Raglan wastes literally no time at all ratting Guy out immediately to these vampires. He's like, hey, guess what? He's not my assistant. I don't even like him, and he's a mind reader. Do you guys want to keep him? You guys can have him. And the vampires take this in, and they're a little bit pissed off that Raglan let this get this far already, so they just shoot him. Mind you, they don't kill him, they shoot him in the shoulder. It's kind of a flesh wound at this point. And head vampire Guy's like, all right, listen up. I want a demonstration of your powers, Guy. Like, you really don't have an option here, so you better get this right. So head vampire, he starts like remembering this fond childhood memory of him riding a horse, and Guy like tells him this whole story, but they like mind meld, and it brings up all of the emotion that went with that too. However, Guy is really just stalling for time here, because out of the corner of his eye, guess what he sees? Oh, he sees Checkers coming in through the window and just like eviscerating the other vampires that were in the other room. So yikes. So once main vampire kind of snaps out of his fond childhood memory, he's like, okay, Raglan, I'm intrigued. And the whole time this conversation and this like memory lane trip has been going on, there has been like 80s music just blaring through this hotel room. In fact, main Guy has sent other vampires to go turn off the music in the other room. However, music is still blaring. In fact, they're just blaring We Belong by Pat Benatar. And I think this is the only time that We Belong has been the soundtrack to a vicious vampire massacre. It's just an odd needle drop for this scene. But anyway, main vamp's like, ugh, I have to do everything myself apparently. So he goes in the room to go turn off the music. Doesn't turn off the music. He meets Checkers, and Checkers makes quick work of him, just rips him to bits, and makes his exit out the window. So now that all the vampires are taken care of and Checkers is gone, Guy can move around the room again. So Guy and Raglan, they go into the Carnage suite over here. And I can't show you any images of it because it's far too gory for YouTube. The basic gist is like everybody's insides are now outsides. Like if you took a big bucket of spaghetti and threw at the walls, that's the room. It's just a mess of viscera. But Raglan isn't necessarily bothered by this. He sees the briefcase that he came for. So he's like, oh, well, don't mind if I do. He goes over to get the briefcase, and Guy smartly grabs the gun that the vampires had and starts pointing it at Raglan. He's like, hey, give me the book. Raglan's like, what book are you talking about? He opens the briefcase and it's just vials of ancient vampire blood. He's like, no, this is like lucrative. Why would I want a book? Like, ew. So Raglan, he gives Guy one of the vials as like a no hard feelings gesture. Like, hey, sorry, I tried to get you killed and all, but like, hey, it worked out. Like, we're good, right? So he gives him a vial, closes his briefcase, gets out of there. So basically, the plan that they had here has gone to shit. They have accomplished none of it. And now Guy is in a viscera-filled hotel room. And you know who shows up next? Jasper. Jasper shows up in the hotel suite, which is odd because didn't Jasper say he can't go into that hotel? He couldn't get past the lobby because all the vampires there knew him. Well, he's certainly not in the lobby now, is he? So it's kind of pointing out what I was saying earlier that like, you know what? I don't think Guy needed to go into this hotel by himself. And who knows? Maybe this was a setup for Guy to get himself killed and out of the way. I don't know yet. But anyway, in the present, Jasper has arrived at the hotel. And Guy's like, well, I done fucked up. We don't have the book. All I have is this vial of blood. This is what this whole thing was about. And Jasper is kind of immediately a little bit pissed off about this. So he looks around the suite and he notices, oh, there is another room in this hotel suite. So he opens the doors, only to find the ancient vampire that they have been draining and harvesting for blood all this time. He's too weak to fight back. He is just like decrepit, is the best way to describe this vampire who's been tortured for who knows how long. And Jasper is rightfully quite upset at this moment. He's like, oh, the Talamasca, out to protect the balance between immortals and people. This has been going on right underneath their noses. They probably knew about it and they did fucking nothing. They did nothing to help this vampire or stop this blood trade. Fuck those guys. Like, it just like cements the fact that he thinks the Talamasca is the source of all of vampires' problems. And considering in the books, the Talamasca was created by basically two vampires and a ghost. Like, the vampires had a seat at the table from the very beginning. They were the elders. What the fuck has happened to get to this point? Something is rotten in the state of Denmark here, and we need to figure out what it is. We don't know yet, but there is some corruption in the Talamasca that we obviously already knew about, but it's bigger than we thought. So Jasper does the only thing he can do, which is mercy kill this ancient vampire graphically. Again, can't show it to you because big yikes for gore, but oh my goodness, I think there was easier ways to do this. He mercy kills this vampire, and they all leave the hotel. They're going back to the Talamasca mother house. And whilst everybody was distracted and saving Guy and getting the vial and doing all this stuff, it gave Doris just enough time to sneak into the trunk of their van. Essentially, Guy is so determined to put himself in situations where he's gonna get killed that Doris is gonna have to literally step in and stop him from doing that. And that is kind of where the episode ends, with them heading off and Doris lying in wait. So while this episode was like a fun, gory vampire danger romp, it really didn't answer a whole lot of questions. We got maybe a little bit of backstory on characters here, but we didn't really get any closer to figuring out the 752, who has it, what it actually is, what it does. It's still, you know, the big MacGuffin that we're looking for. And also, what is the source of the corruption in the Talamasca? We don't know. There's only 2 episodes left. So episode 4 of a 6-episode arc is usually, you know, building tension. And that's what this episode does. This episode definitely took the tension to another level. It's basically raising the stakes, and we're going to find out what happens next week, because that is episode 5, the penultimate episode, which we all know that is the episode where shit goes down in a series. So here we are, we're almost there. Next episode is going to be a shit show. So on that note, let me know in the comments down below, what do you think like the big reveal is going to be next episode? Because we're going to have a bombshell. We all know it's coming. What do you think it's going to be? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. If you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And if you want cool exclusive content, including early access to videos and a book club, you can consider becoming a channel member or a patron. Links for that are in the description down below. And on that note, I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.